3, can we start, please?
Starting the webinar. Hi everyone, the webinar is live.
Hello everyone, I request you all to please wait for 2 minutes. We are starting in 2 minutes only. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished speakers and esteemed participants joining us from Zambia, Zimbabwe, Maldives, and across the continent. On behalf of Merck Foundation, I warmly welcome you to this important online health media training held in partnership with Her Excellency Amai Dr. Auxilia Nangagwa, the First Lady, Republic of Zimbabwe, together with Zimbabwe National Editor Forum, Her Excellency Mrs. Mutinta Hichilema, the First Lady of the Republic of Zambia, together with Zambia Union of Journalists, Her Excellency Madam Sajida Mohammed, the First Lady of the Republic of Maldives, and in collaboration with the Ministry of Youth Empowerment, Information and Art, Maldives. Merck Foundation Health Media Training is a part of Merck Foundation More Than a Mother community awareness program. It is being organized to emphasize the important role that media plays to influence our society to create a cultural shift with the address to aim sensitive social and health issues. We would like to begin by showing you a video to give you an idea on what that inspired Merck Foundation establishment and More Than a Mother establishment, and how First Ladies of Africa and Asia collaborate with Merck Foundation to support and empower women living with infertility stigma through access to health, information, and change of mindset. I request Manoj to please play the video.
Place called Masi in Machakos County. Jacqueline Wende, a 27-year-old young woman from a rural place called Masi in Machakos County, Kenya, tells us her sad story of having both hands chopped off, not by thieves, but by her own husband, for failing to conceive, even though he was the one with a fertility problem.
Mandi ndio nilisikia akigonga mlango akiniambia Jackie nifungulie. Niliachana na chakula nilikuwa nakula, nikaamka nikaenda nikamfungulia. Kitambo nimfungulie ndio alinikata hii mkono. Nikaanguka hapo chini na akanifuruta nikaenda nikaanguka huko chini. Kitambo nianguka huko chini alikuwa ananikata kichwa na mikono na uso na akanidunga hapa na kisu na hiyo panga alikuwa nayo. Aliponichapa nilimuuliza, kwa nini ngila unanichapa? Utaniua peke yako. Akanyamaza akaniambia, leo ndio siku yako ya kuongea, hautaongea tena maishani.
Merck Foundation came to the aid of Jacqueline through the Merck More Than a Mother campaign. She was provided with a new home and a supermarket to enable her to earn a steady income and become independent. Like Jacqueline, there are many other women that suffer from infertility stigma. Merck Foundation works closely with partners to empower them to be heroines of more than a mother movement.
Infertility is not just a woman's thing. It takes the two of them to have a child. So many treatments could make it right. So join her.
Hi, Prashant, you're on mute.
Now I would like to inform you all about the 8 Merck Foundation Awards. Manoj, please, which are under 2 themes, more than a mother and diabetes and hypertension. These awards are under 4 categories: media, song, films, and fashion. I encourage you all to please participate for the same. Please go ahead for the next slide, Manoj, please. Before we call our first speaker, I would like you all to watch the promo of Our Africa by Merck Foundation TV program. Our Africa is a Pan-African TV program that is conceptualized, produced, directed, and co-hosted by Senator Dr. Rasha Khalej. The program features African fashion designers, singers, and prominent experts from various domains with the aim to address and raise awareness on various sensitive health and social issues. The show has been broadcasted in many countries in Africa, including Zimbabwe and Zambia.
Senator Dr. Rasha Khalej and creator of Our Africa TV show.
All Africa will be part of our show.
The CEO of Merck Foundation.
We want to support girls' education. No to infertility stigma, yes to girls' education. We want to stop gender-based violence for stop. Number of child marriage will double by 2050.
Prashant, mute. You're on mute.
You can watch Our Africa by Merck Foundation on Merck Foundation's website and our social media channels. Now I would like to welcome Dr. Mackenzie Bright, consultant, gynecologist, fertility specialist, Levi Mwanawasa University Teaching Hospital, Lusaka, Zambia. He is our Merck Foundation alumni also. He will be speaking today about on infertility prevention, the link between infertility and infectious diseases and male infertility. If you have any questions during this talk, you are free to write them in question and answer section appearing on your screen at the bottom. Dr. Bright, please.
Good morning. I'm sure others it's good afternoon. Am I audible enough?
Yes, Dr. Mackenzie.
Thank you so much. Like I've been already introduced, Mackenzie Bright is my name. I'm a consultant obstetrician, gynecologist, and fertility specialist at the Levi Mwanawasa University Teaching Hospital here in Lusaka, Zambia. Like I've already been introduced, I'm going to talk about infertility prevention and the link between infertility and infectious diseases. And categorically there, if you look at the male infertility as well. So please, if I'm very fast, you can notify me so that we don't eat up much of the time, so that we can have a proper discussion in the question and answer session. Okay, so when we talk about infertility awareness and prevention, we know that already WHO has actually classified infertility now as a disease. A long time ago, people never used to talk about it that much, but now that WHO has recognized it, that it's indeed a disease, therefore there's need that our communities should be aware, and we should know how to help them prevent this disease, especially where stigma is concerned. When we look at breaking the stigma around infertility in our setup, as in the African setup, we are going to talk about infertility prevention, and then we look a bit also about the link between infertility and infectious diseases. Then we look at the male infertility, and that will help us coordinate and see how best we can deal with this in our communities. To start with, our work is that this infertility, it being a disease, in Africa, we know that some tradition, cultural and religious practices combined with low resource environment are linked with high levels of preventable causes of infertility in women. When we look at poor infertility, poor nutrition, untreated sexual transmitted diseases, unsafe abortions, the consequence of infection caused by the practice of female genital mutilation in some religions, and also exposure to smoking, leaded petrol, and other environmental pollutants. We see that a combination of all these things have made a lot of impact in our women, especially that we have people that when they are having these sexually transmitted diseases, the majority of them actually even feel shy to come to our hospitals, because also sometimes you find that the stigma starts from us, the very health workers, because they are scared to come. Some of us, the way we talk to them when somebody comes with a sexually transmitted disease, we think they are leading very careless lives, but it should start with us as health workers, that when somebody comes, even with just a simple sexually transmitted disease, we need to treat it, we need to do contact tracing, and make sure that whatever services that we provide, there is always an aspect of confidentiality and respect for our patients. In sub-Saharan Africa, we all know that infection is the cause of infertility in up to 85% of women seeking infertility care, compared to 33 worldwide when we compare it at the global level. So, and majority of this, we know that it's untreated infectious disease that can lead to this infertility, and there's need for regular checkups, which in Africa, in most African communities, it's very rare. We only see people coming to the hospital when the disease has really done its damage. But in its early stages, we see very few people coming to just seek that medical checkup that is required. So we all know that some of these untreated infections, when they see a doctor early enough, you see that the outcome also comes out well. As we may be aware, infertility is not a stigma. We all understand that the majority of these sexually transmitted diseases are called, the worst outcome is by chlamydia and gonorrhea, which are the main common causes of pelvic inflammatory disease, the PID, which leads to infertility. We know that sometimes when you have these bacteria, the symptoms may be few or may not be there. The outcome, and that if people do not pay much attention to some of these in terms of screening, they can live with them until the damage has been done. And we say that if these conditions like chlamydia and gonorrhea are left untreated, they do a lot of damage to the tubes. Once they cause that pelvic inflammatory disease, we understand that not only could they cause tubal blockage, but we know that the candidate will end up suffering a lot of things, that complication that will end up having pelvic chronic pain. They may also get to be predisposed to ectopic pregnancy, and infertility itself as the last complication that will make them now start visiting hospitals, when this could have been actually been prevented if they were treated promptly enough and early enough. Beside the negative impact of HIV that it has on our immunity, we understand that if somebody has already HIV and then they end up having PID, we'll see that HIV can also affect your body's ability to produce hormones required to fall pregnant. And this will also lead to irregular menstruation, ovulation dysfunctions, and that's when we'll see now people now coming to the hospital. Now, as we may be aware that actually infertility affects men and women equally. A long time ago, especially in our African setup, the blame when the couple failed to conceive, the first blame actually goes to the females. The men are quick to actually put the blame on the females. But with science now and research and literature that we have around, we've actually have the fact that actually infertility affects men and women equally, okay? So that's the reason why we need to educate our people about safe sex education. That will result in practice of safe sex, and also don't share needles, because some of these infectious diseases are actually transmitted through sharing of needles. So both men and women should practice safe sex and avoid risk behavior that can actually lead to these STDs, such as chlamydia. And we all know that STDs can cause serious complications, like we've already talked about PID, tubal blockage, and ectopic pregnancy, and prostatitis in men, which can subsequently cause infertility. Now, let's talk about our women friends as well. So we know that for women, a number of strategies may help increase the chances of becoming pregnant. And as a result, we see that we need to do a lot of exercise moderately. Regular exercise is important, but if you are exercising so intensely that your periods are infrequent or absent, your fertility will be affected. As we may be aware that a lot of exercise, if we do strenuous exercises, we know that the hypothalamus gets affected and other parts of the body that are responsible for menstrual regulation are affected. As a result of exercise, the stress that it comes with is able to shut the menstrual cycle, and somebody will now have issues to conceive. So therefore, yes, exercise is very important, but it has to be done moderately so that at least we preserve the fertility. Then also, eating is very important. We need to have a balanced diet and maintain a healthy weight. I know in low-income communities, sometimes it may be very difficult to have a proper balanced diet, but it's important that even the little natural grown food that we have, we can actually come up with a balanced diet, because being underweight or overweight can affect your hormone production or result in disturbances in your monthly period, which can cause infertility. Because remember, a normal human body, if you just lose about 5 kg body weight of your normal weight, it can actually affect the menstrual cycle. Then smoking. I know in this world where we're living, where there's an advance in technology, people are able to watch on YouTube what other people are living. Even those who are in very, very poor communities, they're able to watch on YouTube and on social media how other people are leading this sedentary life, and others are copying from there. You find now women are taking too much tobacco. So tobacco has multiple negative effects on fertility, not to mention your general health and the health of your unborn baby. Remember, if you get pregnant and you still abuse alcohol, you end up having those alcohol fetal syndromes. So it's important that we avoid alcohol and any other street drugs, because these substances may impair your ability to conceive and have a healthy pregnancy. Apart from that, also, you need to limit your caffeine intake, because women trying to get pregnant may want to limit caffeine intake. As your doctor, for guidance on the safe use of caffeine, it's very important that you meet. That's the reason why we need also to actually promote preconception counseling in the African setup. This is rarely done in African setup. You only see most people come when they're already pregnant, but we need to promote preconception counseling so that before a couple is planning to conceive, they are counseled on how to lead their health life and what they need to do in order to have a safe pregnancy. And also avoid industrial and environmental toxins. Some of our people in Africa, some of them are working in bakery industries, others in heavy metal industries, which may not actually give them a signal that these industries actually have got some environmental toxin that may play a role in their fertility issues. Therefore, it's important that we avoid industrial and environmental toxins such as pesticide and heavy metals that are found in large fish and also stockfish, and avoid to stress our lives so much so that the body can work at optimum functionality for you to conceive properly. Now, raising awareness about male infertility is also important. Like I said earlier on, that the many times in our African setup, the blame always goes to the females. But we understand that now infertility affects both males and females equally. Yeah, it's an accepted fact that men are core to the reproduction, but the neglected fact is that men can be core to infertility problem as well. And many of the times is that when you see a couple coming, the first thing we all rush is first is to investigate a female, and the cycle changes when you discover that actually it's a male that has a problem. Now you start reversing whatever bad ways that was going to the female. So we need to understand that, and also that when you're dealing with infertility, since we all know that infertility affects men and women equally, it's time that we share the treatment journey together. So infertility does not just affect women. About half of the causes of infertility are due to or include male factors. Therefore, infertility is one of the commonest conditions affecting reproductive age group between 20 and 45 years. Therefore, we need to get involved and we need to support wives and also get tested with your wife as a male partner. Now, when we look at the facts or the issues that really affect male infertility, we know that sperm production or the delivery system is affected. It can be anatomical causes where you have people, maybe it's an acquired, where they acquired something, or it's a congenital that something was born with, or there's a blockage. That can be either if it's in the male in the urethra, if it's a female in the tubes. Then it could be physiological. Like we talked about the failed function of the hormones, about overexercising, drugs and other issues. Or it could be environmental influences, such as exposure to temperatures. We all know that the sperm production is affected by high temperatures. It could be radiation, it could be drugs, it could be alcohol and the use of other sedentary drugs and industrial toxins, or it could be just diet factors and weight, where you have some male lacking some of the essential mineral elements that are needed for proper sperm production. So all this should be put together as we share the treatment journey together in treatment of infertility. So for men, like I've said, the combination of keeping health and avoiding environmental toxins may really help and can play a very important role in ensuring that this issue is dealt with. And the following tips may help. We limit your alcohol intake, avoid drugs, and stop smoking. Because like I said, infertility is a shared responsibility. And also avoid temperatures, as this can affect sperm production and motility, especially those if you want to take a very hot bath, or if you work in a bakery industry or any industry that deals with a lot of heat, we need to avoid that. Although this effect is really temporary, avoid riding also motorbikes, hot tubs and steam bath. Instead, use showers and wear loose pants. That will help proper air circulation and temperature control. And like I've already mentioned this, we avoid exposure to industrial and environmental toxins, such as pesticide. I know sometimes some people, those who have big plots, depending on African setup, some people would love gardening. And when they're doing gardening, there's a high chance that you'll be exposed to this pesticide in trying to control your vegetable garden and other things. And all those things, we need to be a bit cautious, as they may damage or impact sperm production. Then that we keep re-emphasizing, because we can never do away with the diet. We need to eat a balanced diet and maintain a health weight. Remember, overeating also may result in obesity, and we know that obesity is directly related to testosterone levels, which is a key hormone responsible for sperm production. And eating a balanced diet will always provide the necessary nutrient to optimize sperm function and minimize the effects of factors which may otherwise damage the sperm. Now, the key take-home message is that infertility is not a stigma, ladies and gentlemen. Infertility, we should all be aware that infertility affects men and women equally, and we need to get involved and get informed, and we need to support our wives, and we remember that infertility is a shared responsibility, and it takes a man and a woman to have a child. It's not only a man, it's not only a female, but it's both that have to take part in. And men are more than fathers, like just women are more than mothers. Therefore, we need to break the stigma around infertility in Africa. We've seen a lot of damage that are a lot of families, you and me, to spread the news, make Mr. Prashant, you can take it up.
Sure, Dr. Mackenzie. Thank you. We now welcome Dr. Musanda Evans, psychiatrist, Sainama Hills College Hospital, Zambia, and also our Merck Foundation alumni. He will discuss the influence of infertility stigma and other social issues like GBV on women and couples, and how the media can inspire the sympathy and positive social stories. Over to you, Dr. Evans.
Let me good morning. Good morning. Are you able to hear me?
Good morning, Dr. Evans. Yes, we can hear you.
All right. I'm very happy today, I think, to have this chance of making a presentation, which is sponsored by the Merck Foundation. Like the introduction has said, my name is Musanda Evans. I'm a psychiatrist at Sainama Hills College Hospital, which is the only tertiary hospital for mental health. And I'm here to discuss the influence, stigma, and other social issues like gender-based violence, women, and couples, and what the role of the media is supposed to do in such instances. You can go to the next slide.
Hi, Dr. Evans. I have given you the access to control your slide on your screen, bottom left-hand side. Hi, Prashant. I think Dr. Evans has dropped out. Can you please check?
Yes, let me please check.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Dr. Evans, we can hear you. I am just going to give you the access to control your slide.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
A lot of technical issues regarding the internet. But Prashant, if you're able to hear me, I think feed me back.
Hi, Dr. Evans, we
Okay.
can hear you. You are audible. Please go ahead.
Manoj, I guess Dr. Evans is having some trouble with his internet. The moment he joined, let's not switch on his video and we can go with the audio only.
Yeah, sure.
I think I'm having a lot of challenges with the internet. Manoj, if you can help me with the slides.
Yes, please. I am giving you the slide control, Dr. Evans, right now.
Yes.
I have. Can you check? Are you able to operate your slide?
Let me check. Okay, I can't.
Okay, no worries. What we can do is you can tell me next and I will operate the slide from my side. Don't worry about it.
Can I go on talking then?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, very good. So that's my outline. I will look at the overview of infertility, first of all, before going to gender-based violence. The psychosocial impact of infertility, the impact of gender-based violence, and then other psychosocial impact of gender-based violence, and the role of the media in these aspects I've talked about. I am very glad. I think my colleague, Dr. Mackenzie, has done justice to all aspects of infertility, but I'll go just through as much of the emphasis has been done by Mackenzie. So in my introduction, I'll quote the WHO definition of infertility. So this is an aspect or a condition that affects both male and the females, and is defined as a failure to achieve conception after 1 year or more of regular and protected sexual intercourse. Liang et al. 2025 called this trend that it is increasing among the people or childbearing ages of 15 to 49 years globally, and stipulated that by 2014, this increase of infertility will be significant. In an African setting, infertility is very, very significant. The factors which have it as an impact is that everyone who has entered in a union between a man and woman are supposed to bear a child. If they don't have, it is socially impacting, where the person can even be discredited in an environment of a community which are in traditional aspects. So whenever one is mentioned to have infertility, they feel isolated. Some people even have aspects of harm throughout their relationships. Before I go any further, maybe to emphasize on types of infertility, which can be primary or secondary. in a primary setting, that's where you find that a couple or a woman is unable to achieve pregnancy or end pregnancy without all the other conditions. So primarily somebody hasn't had a child or end conception of any form. The secondary type is the inability to achieve subsequent pregnancy after having at least one pregnancy. So like I have said, in an African setting, infertility has been so big with about 20 to 30%, but differs in some regions. For instance, in Nigeria, can linger around 20 to 30%, while in Gambia, about 9% would have been recorded to have infertility. You can move on if you're able to move the slides. We're working with you. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. So in Gambia, they are even, that's a setting comparably in regions of Africa. There are some places where it is very high and some places where it is very low. So I was talking about studies in Gambia where the infertility is about 9%. And this aspect, it's going to be good to look at the factors that may contribute to infertility. The general ones mentioned in such a way like tobacco, smoking, excess alcohol intake, obesity, and various lifestyle choices can impact a person to have infertility. For instance, the studies in Gambia show that tubal factors, maybe such as pelvic inflammation, disease, which are in the range of as sexually transmitted infections. The male factor infertility trends at 8.9 and as such. In a Zambian setting, maybe there could be new studies. Dr. Makezi would have alluded to that, I know. According to Manjimela Mulundano, he said, although there are few studies which are done in a Zambian setting, they revealed that 25.7% of women experience infertility. Another emphasis is what was looked at, that infertility affects both male and female. When a couple presents to the hospital, usually the target has been the woman to face a stigma that they are not the one who are bearing children, because the man is usually regarded as a very big factor where nobody can point at them that they are the cause of infertility. Next slide. Yes. So this is what I was talking about, the infertility prevalence list. So the major thing to point it out is the statistics, where it says 1 in 6 people have experienced infertility at some stage in their lives. This is a very big or significant percentage, and usually overlooked. So the depiction in a global setting is rendering that we should be aware and teach a lot of people about infertility, unlike the traditional or cultural factors which are embedded in it. Next slide. So when it comes to the psychological impact of infertility, it's a whole range of things. So infertility can cause a lot of psychological distress, emotional stress, and financial difficulties. You will see when I go to the subsequent diagrammatic show how this entails. So in these, persons usually suffer depression because they are regarded as a misfit if it's in a cultural setting, and they usually move about with low esteem, and they face a wrath of being ostracized in their communities. So we have seen a lot of partners who have separated or divorced because of the reasons of infertility. Little do they know that the one who is causing the infertility is the male factor, which is in communities regarded as a perfect one, as in, for example, herself. So it brings a lot of harm to persons' relationships. Since we know that it is there, and there are a lot of researchers coming out, and those which stand on the possibility of investigating infertility and giving them the financial costs usually falls because it is very, very scarce. There are very few, like in our setting in Zambia, clinics or hospitals or units which are offering infertility management. So because of that same reason, you find prices for that treatment or investigating infertility is usually very high. And in low-income countries, such as ours, it's a very big burden and perpetuates infertility, lives like that. Next slide. Maybe next slide. I would have skipped that. Go to the next slide. Yes, this is supposed to come before the GBV. I apologize for the mix-up of the slides. So generally, the factors are in this broad range, where the age, for instance, in women above 35, they're usually hampered in terms of infertility. For men, usually goes about 35 to 40 years old for them to be rendered having a risk factor for infertility. Gender, as we know, maybe it's because of studies that those who have sick problems for infertility are usually the first in the line are women. So more women have been investigated that there are aspects of infertility can come in. Lifestyle changes have been foretold, I think, in terms of smoking and such, like infections, even hormonal aspects, procedures which affect the pelvis, cancer treatment, and the environment have been all of them as factors of associated with infertility. So go to the next slide, please, so that I emphasize it in a diagrammatic view. Thank you very much. So this is a depiction with the infertility at the center, where a lot of relationships regarding to factors of a person could arise or could become a consequence, and which are the risk factors. So, for instance, I'll talk about the lifestyle changes. In terms of the lifestyle factors, these have been emphasized. Age, as I talked about in there, smoking, drugs, STIs, they are a very, very big risk factor in infertility. Then there are those which may be unmodifiable types of factors, such as the genetic factors. So this one affects both male and females, where you find chromosomal abnormalities or genetic disorders which affect not only males, not only women, but even males. So there are conditions in this aspect, such as the Turner syndrome, the Klinefelter syndrome, and the Cartagener's syndrome. These have been known to be very much connected to the balance of genes, which could affect a person's infertility. The other aspect, which may be more of both cause and effect and outcome, is what is termed as the psychoeconomic impact, where a person who has a low social financial aspect is affected, both in trying to conceive and both in trying to ameliorate if they have infertility. So a person of low financial status may not have work where they can gain an incentive which could be used to treat infertility. So that way, in a person's life, the infertility may perpetuate or continue. Aspect of psychosocial impact, the loss of self-esteem, social isolation is a very big factor when it comes to infertility. Though a person moves about with low self-esteem in the society and they are isolated in aspect of society. Psychological impacts. These are outcomes, but they can also be causes, because if somebody has been experiencing anxiety, that's where you find that maybe a partner may be experiencing premature erections, and they haven't met the definition of the WHO of infertility. So anxiety may cause premature ejaculation, leading to somebody's infertility. If somebody is always in anger or depression, it might affect that couple in a way that the sexual intercourse is not usually met, as according to WHO definition. I think you can go back 2 slides so that we capture what is gender-based violence. Yes, go back again. Yes, so sorry about that. This aspect is another trendy thing, although we are living in a society where some sensitization could have been, but it has a rich aspect in people's lives. The simple definition is just what is termed as violence which is committed against a person because of his or her sex. Initially, there was an aspect where people used to say, like, violence against women is synonymous to gender-based violence. These are 2 separate entities and must be treated so, because there's this aspect where males are also passing through this, because that's why GBV is not synonymous to just violence against women, because the males have also been incorporated in it. 2021 study approximated that 1 in 3 or 30% of general population, women 15 years and older, would have been subjected to gender-based violence, where either it's physical and sexual. And reportedly, in the Zambian setting, this has been reported as Zambia has been reported to be one of the highest rates of sexual and gender-based violence in Zambia. So we are not spared in our local settings. I think we need more studies and expose this scourge. So GBV is, it used to be used interchangeably with the term violence against women and sexual and gender-based violence. What has led to these aspects? So some people experience gender-based violence. There are root causes and even stereotypes. One stereotype is a traditional one which entrenches in how men or how boys and girls are brought up in a society. For instance, they would rather say the kitchen is the only place for the woman, and men should be out there doing a lot of physical things. So the portraying of masculinity, femininity has led to be undermining the women's aspect, because they were placed in setups where they are unable to speak out whatever problem they would have. They would rather speak out, maybe in a channel which is rooted in an aspect of culture or tradition, where they will say you're not supposed to raise a voice, even when you are being abused physically or sexually by the males. So they used to keep quiet. So some of traditional aspects which would have led to GBV may include female genital mutilation. There is also an aspect in some traditions which is called honor crimes, where in places of clans, some people are not supposed to say or hear anything. An example is when a family, like such as a woman, okay, if you're able to hear me, let's continue. So it's called honor crimes. In some tribes, if a woman marries out of their clan, they were subjected to a lot of punishment, and killing was among one of them. I hope this time it has ended, and the family is the one usually who would be in a position to kill that family member because of that committing of an outsider type of way of practice. So they would do what is termed as honor crimes. I'll also talk about another thing which may lead to gender violence is entrenched in what we term this time as human trafficking. So gender-based violence and human trafficking are two different things, but human trafficking has been dubbed as a subset of gender-based violence. According to the global report, you can go to the slides where it is continuation of gender-based violence. Dr. Manoj, you can go to the two next slides. The next one now. This is which I would have already talked about, like prevalence varies between region and region because of cultures. But I was talking about gender-based violence and human trafficking, where there is they go hand in hand. So few studies exist where human trafficking is very connected to gender-based violence. There is another quoting where, according to the global report on trafficking in person, was published, and an examination of the court records revealed that there is usually tandemness and frequency of physical severe abuse for persons who are human trafficking victims, where the gender violence starts in this aspect. Usually those who are captors, they subdue women by emotionally depriving them of their speaking or physically being abused as they are taken to various places where either they could be used as sex workers and such like. So this one has been entrenched too much as a very big aspect which affects a lot of individuals. You can go to the next slide. Yes. It's just a depiction of the impact of gender-based violence. So to this right, it starts like this. On the underside, which is green, majority of victims are women and girls. I'd be able to put the slide going downwards, but you should just know that what is underside here is gender-based violence. So the majority are women and girls, and the other aspect, their vulnerability to GBV, and this path, which is almost like a very big corridor here, which I think we are trying to emphasize on, and the role of who is going to curtail such, especially the role of the media. So this path, which is lack of GB policies, strategies, and programs, directly impinging downwardly, which I was supposed to depict a diagram of GBV. It goes upward and downward to depict what is supposed to be typical diagram of the impact of gender-based violence. And at the right hand here, there is what are the forms of gender-based violence? Sexual violence, we have heard about it. In the stigma, because maybe they are not talked about, they usually are undermined. Physical abuse, beating and such like. Emotions or emotional abuse, where a person, for instance, starts to, if it's in a couple's life, the other couple they are subjected to maybe verbal abuse itself, or neglecting of social duties, such as making love among themselves to show punishment to the other. Then neglect, where a person, for instance, in a family or a spouse or couple, they are not given right amount of resources to ensure that the family gets what they need as the basic needs in life, or withholding, for instance, money in such like is what is been determined as some forms of gender-based violence. What are the effects? Especially if it's in the women, they usually are curtailed of advancement in careers and very poor outcomes in terms of career progression. There is mental and psychological distresses where depression can form in. If it's at school, there's low turnout for school, and also just moving about with low self-esteem. So there's a lot of aspect where these people are subjected to when it comes to gender-based violence. I think you can go to the next slide. Yes, this slide, I think encompasses almost all these forms of conditions where humans have been subjected, and is proportionately higher in women. We usually call upon the role of the media to curtail some of the entrenchment of maybe cultural, of subduing a person's right and leading to such aspects of afflictions. So what is the role of the media? The media, we have seen changes in gadgets, in improvement in a lot of technology, but the media at one point usually used to shun reporting about some of these incidences. For instance, if it's sexual abuse, the child will not tell exactly who was their perpetrator, because they are fearing that the nature of the culture doesn't allow a child who has been subjected to any form of violence, especially gender-based violence, to talk it out to the public. But now we would want, and what we have seen, maybe slight improvement, but we want more. So it's usually a multi-factor aspect, and the social and the psychological aspect follows through, as I have alluded to this one example. So what are they supposed to do? They are supposed to, for instance, in infertility, they are supposed to spotlight champions who are in the community and break some of the chains which holds these people not to be talking, because the holders of one of the ritual aspects are found in that same community. So engagement to some of these abuses, gender-based violences, or even enlightenment of the people who are afflicted with infertility. These spotlights of community champions are the interface which we usually have as a priority in entering into a community. So it encompasses the religious leaders, traditional headmen in some aspects of communities. So there is what is termed as invisible pain, because most people don't come out. So people, when they talk about this, when they are captured on the media, they influence others on the media. Then we need to tackle a lot of interconnected crises of infertility and GBV, where stories of recovery and resilience come into play in the media, writing about them and such like. Next slide. The other issue, I think, which has been highly debated is comprehensive sex education. And at one point, where do we teach the child that what goes along when people start to talk about sex? There have been people who have, like sexual debuts, they find the sexual debuts in an old age. They don't even know how to talk or influence this, and then they find a partner who is abusive. So when it comes to comprehensive sex education, it starts from a very tender age so that people should know their rights about sex implications and outcomes, even the goodness and the bad of it. I think by that time, when they have been educated, they will become a tool to curtail some of these scourges, such as gender-based violence. Influence in policy. Policies including gender-based violence should be debated in, for instance, parliaments, and come up with stories which are not just as a talking point, but they are emphasized to curtail the scourges of GBV and infertility. So this has to be in those higher auditoriums where, for instance, it's a parliament, and they are documented on how to help people with GBV. The other aspect is using cultural sensitive approach. The culture sensitive approach helps people to talk about or to have somebody helping, but not only pointing out the negatives, but using that strategy, which is also found in the community, to help people know about the scourges. Most of these people who have GBV or infertility, they face what is called psychotrauma. So by using, not removing the culture, that which is entrenched in a harsh way, is to find out about their culture and telling stories which have logic, such as researchers in science, and see where the expense should just be aborted, or I mean, for a ritual to be aborted and follow up to the new logical and maybe safer way of coming out of this psychological trauma. So the media has this aspect of being an interface between the one who knows and the one who is afflicted. Then the other aspect, I think, documented by Menon et al., there was a lot of abuse reported during the COVID-19. Because of the aspect of being isolated in homes, there were aspects of a lot of conflicts in families. So they should help not describe events, but link them to legal systems and rendering them help. During calamities and natural disasters, it's to be known that most of the people would have suffered most likely traumas leading to gender-based violence. So by the use of the media in natural calamities, such as that which happened in COVID-19, are very important. Next slide. Yes. What about medical intervention? Let's say, for instance, one who has, this is maybe typified to those who have infertility. So let's say someone has been diagnosed to be having infertility. They should accept the transition from being isolated and thinking that no help would come, because this time we have a lot of fertility clinics, the introduction of in vitro type of treatments or fertilization. They are very, very common. So for instance, you have infertility and they diagnose you with that. Then you have a chance to get medication. It is supposed to be published and then tell people that they should follow adherence to certain life practices, like watching one's weight, diet, and the adherence to the medication would be a picture which would be portrayed in the community, that that one example has been held through that means of medication. And then a lot of people who are passing through those aspects would also follow through. This is just their next bulletin is just a sensitization of community about the causes, which have been a lot. So treatable ones and those which you cannot treat. For instance, those which you cannot treat by modifiable changes can be rendered into trial of what research is. Another point is the government should collaborate with mobile network providers and healthcare providers. We are seeing in the media a lot of TikToks, which are portraying a lot of faster and quicker means to catch up with several forms of information. So if the government collaborates with mobile network providers, like we have these 3 in Zambia, if not 4, to start sending messages where people can be having catchy attention and follow through, and even have call lines to be helped in dealing with such aspects. Next slide. There is a need for newspapers. I think it's also included in network providers, newspapers, flyers, and such like to destigmatize a lot of aspects such as infertility and GBV. In another issue which has been very big is that what about human traffickers? Consider even gender aspect. There is a need, for instance, as a psychotherapy, to have a listening ear and tell the survivor of either human trafficking and such, tell them to have stories which are very vital, unlike, for instance, somebody saying, no, that one was raped. Then a therapist is the one who is flowing over to say, no, she deserved to be raped. Those are very discouraging and such like. So human trafficking, there are survivors who tell the story. So it's very clear. And a target point is that they should be listened. Aspects of the law, they should be freely given clear consent every time they're faced. They should give clear consent about the aspect they're going through. It's mandatory. You don't have to force a person to make a plea when they have suffered this. Free and clear consent is very mandatory in such aspects. Then learning the signs and of abuse, how can you help, such as media capture? There are children or girls who have suffered trauma from being gender, such as being raped. So that you have
no more diabetes, reverse diabetes, goodbye diabetes.
It's morning rush time to school. And
this is where I end my presentation. Thank you very much for your time. Yes, those are some of the slides I took the information from. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Evans.
All right, thank you.
Now let's take a short creative break and enjoy and learn from an educational animation, Sugar-Free Jude, about diabetes awareness and healthy lifestyle. I would request my colleague to please play the video.
Merck Foundation. No more diabetes, reverse diabetes, goodbye diabetes.
it's morning rush time to school, and Jude is about to take a big bite into his breakfast on the go. Jude loves donuts, especially sugar-coated ones.
I love the taste of sugar on my donuts. It makes my morning sweet with this juice combination.
Jude, don't you think your eating habits are too unhealthy?
I am worried about the rate at which you consume sugar products.
James, relax. I can't wait to eat my lunch. More donuts? There's nothing to worry about.
Jude was not bothered about James' concern. He went on eating more sweet foods day after day. As the days passed by, Jude started noticing something quite unusual.
My goodness, not again.
Jude would wake up several times at night to wee. It was so uncomfortable. Not only that, but he also noticed that he would wake up very thirsty. Jude would need to drink water multiple times during the day as well as night, and this also meant using the washroom several times.
Oh my god, this is so destructive and shameful.
What is it? This appears to be the third time you woke up to use the bathroom. You even look a bit fat. Very unusual.
I have no idea, Mom. And I've been feeling very thirsty lately as well. And sometimes tired.
We need to see the doctor to make sure all is well with you.
I agree, Mom. It disrupts my day at school too much.
At the clinic, Dr. Yobo decides to conduct a few tests to confirm his diagnosis about Jude. He opts to do the blood glucose test to check Jude's blood sugar level.
So according to the results, you have type 2 diabetes.
Type 2 what?
Diabetes is a condition wherein the blood sugar level in your body becomes too high. In type 2 diabetes, there is insulin resistance or relative deficiency of insulin that results in excessive blood sugar, which in turn can lead to other health problems. In short, type 2 diabetes is a metabolic condition in which the body's insulin is either ineffective or relatively insufficient to deal with the blood glucose levels.
Dr. Yobo continued to explain to Jude about his condition.
The exact cause of diabetes is not known, but genetics, family history of diabetes, and an unhealthy lifestyle seem to be the most common and important causative factors.
What happens if diabetes is not well controlled?
The long-term complications of diabetes can include the following: stroke, blindness, heart disease, kidney failure, sexual dysfunction, and amputation. Type 2 diabetes is a chronic condition in which there is bodily resistance to the insulin produced by the pancreas, and it typically manifests in adolescents. Managing this will require medication and regular blood sugar tests as well as a healthy lifestyle.
It was tough to accept for Jude at the beginning.
My days of sugar-coated donuts and sweetened drinks are over.
But he had support for his new lifestyle. The school made sure his lunch was not full of the usual sweet things, and his friends reminded him to take his sugar test and play football or basketball with them regularly to keep healthy. His parents were also supportive, preparing healthy meals for him and removing all sweet and sugary drinks from the house. In fact, all family members became sugar-free too. Back in school, Jude and his friends soon formed a Sugar Police Kids Club to raise awareness about the condition and to help others who had diabetes or were pre-diabetic so they can prevent and early diagnose it.
Try to go sugar-free in your meals. Eat more fruits and veggies, along with moderate daily exercise. Our lives can be so sweet without sugar too. Let's all work together to fight diabetes every day.
Merck Foundation. No more diabetes. Reverse diabetes. Goodbye diabetes. We can make it work. 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 Push back diabetes. No more diabetes. Reverse it. We can make it work. We can make it work. We can make it work. We can make it work.
Up next, we have Dr. Gerald from the Medical Officer Morgenstern Hospital Diabetes Clinic, Zimbabwe, and also our Merck Foundation alumni. He will talk about how the media can effectively report on diabetes and hypertension and promote prevention and early detection in communities. Over to you, Dr. Gerard.
Okay, good day, everyone. I'm just waiting for the slides to come up.
Yes, please.
Okay. So I will take you through this presentation on promoting a health lifestyle and raising awareness about prevention and early detection of diabetes and hypertension, and also critically how to report about it to the community. So as a start, I think in most developing countries, we are seeing an epidemiological shift from the traditional infectious diseases that we have been dealing with for many years to having non-communicable diseases also being part of the challenges that we have to manage on a daily basis. And amongst the non-communicable diseases that we are seeing increasing are the cardiovascular diseases. We also have diabetes, and then cancer, and we also have chronic respiratory diseases. And the changes are coming as a result of also the combination of genetic, physiological, environmental, and behavioral factors, which you will see as we go through the slides. And non-communicable diseases are also becoming the leading cause of death worldwide. And they represent an emerging global health threat, and especially in our developing countries, they then increase the burden of disease that we have to manage on a daily basis. So this is just to highlight, to say we have high blood pressure, then that's for hypertension, we have diabetes, we have heart disease, we also have heart attack or stroke, then chronic respiratory disease. An example that is familiar for most of you is asthma, and then we also have cancers. And then in terms of cancers, I think we are seeing a whole range of cancers that are now affecting our people. And as the number increases, it also increases the burden of the non-communicable diseases that we have to manage. Then zeroing in on diabetes. So diabetes, I think there are so many versions about what causes diabetes. But basically, diabetes is a chronic metabolic disease, which is characterized by elevated levels of blood sugar, which leads over time to serious damage to the heart, blood vessels, eyes, kidneys, and nerves. So the common question that we have to ask ourselves, especially with regard to reporting and also just raising commuter awareness, is how does someone with diabetes present? So the common symptoms that we see are excessive thirst, which is otherwise called polydipsia, and then there will also be an excessive appetite. For example, someone having taken a meal and in 30 minutes they are feeling hungry as if they have not even taken a meal before. And then we have excessive urination. I think you saw from the video that one of the problem is that there will be frequency in terms of someone going to the loo every other moment, and especially at night, that's when most people then realize that they are going to pass urine a bit more. And then we also have weight loss, and their vision changes and fatigue. So as we report, I think it's very important to also then ensure that we cover some of these symptoms, because for most of the clients that are diagnosed to have diabetes, they would have been experiencing some of these symptoms for some time, some extending to even a year or 2 years. But they will not know what is the challenge. So for us, as we report, it's also very important to ensure that we challenge our relevant communities to go and get screened whenever they face some of these symptoms. So I think this is just another slide that is also then adding on to some of the symptoms or some things that we can notice someone presents with diabetes. We have talked about excessive thirst, and then they also slow in terms of poor wound healing. The wound healing is generally slow for someone with diabetes, and then they also the issue of constant hunger, then excessive tiredness and drowsiness, and tingling sensation, and hands can in the feet or hands can also occur. Then a sudden weight loss, blurred vision, and excessive urination. So one thing that we also then have to know is that some people can present with a whole range of a combination of symptoms, but some can even present with one symptom. So our advice is that as long as someone knows one of these, they just should then go and get screened at their local clinic or even at a community health post, depending with what is available to them. So broadly, we then focus on three groups of diabetes. There is type 1, which is early onset, and this one is generally found in people that are below the age of 40. And then type 2 is those that are above the age of 40. And then gestational diabetes, this is restricted to those that are pregnant, and usually the diagnosis is made after the first 12 weeks, which is after the first trimester. Then moving on to some of the risk factors, I think risk communication is very critical for us, even as we interact with our communities and as we spread the message about diabetes. It's also very critical for us to remember that there are certain risk factors. And amongst the risk factors for type 2 diabetes is a family history of diabetes. So we usually encourage that if there is a family history of diabetes, people should just be encouraged to be regularly screened for diabetes because they are at risk. And then for those that are 45 years or older, I think you see that in most developing countries, we still have issues with our health-seeking behavior, which means that for most people, they choose to stay away from health facilities or even from different platforms where they can access health services. But we encourage that as they grow older, not only for diabetes, but for other conditions, they should then also then be screened because they are at risk. And then we also have the issue of ethnicity. Your race also can also put you at risk. And then physical inactivity. You realize that in most developing countries, our lifestyle has been generally changing. We used to walk long distances. We used to be a bit of a more physical people, but now that there is an increase in automation and some of these technologies, as they are being transferred to our settings, we are now becoming more inactive. You see that for people that used to walk maybe 2 kilometers to go to work, now they prefer getting into a car, and that physical inactivity is actually contributing to their risk of developing diabetes. And then being overweight or obese, usually we then judge this using the body mass index, which we also as media practitioners should be able to communicate to our people so that they can actually calculate their own body mass index at home and see their risk. And then high blood pressure. So high blood pressure is a risk for diabetes, whereas also diabetes is a risk for high blood pressure. So these actually have a reciprocal relationship. So when someone has a high blood pressure, they should be regularly screened for diabetes. Then a high cholesterol also puts someone at risk of diabetes. And then smoking is another risk factor for diabetes. And then as we communicate the symptoms, as we communicate the risk factors, we also need to communicate the complications. Because one thing that also happens with diabetes is that someone can present as a first-time presentation with a complication. So some of the complications, even as we go from head to toe, we see that a patient can develop a stroke because of diabetes. They can actually end up with blindness, or they can develop cataracts because of diabetes, and they can develop also heart disease, and they can develop kidney failure, and they can develop sexual dysfunction, which actually can become a very big sexual emergence, a family emergence, that is, because of most of the time people would not know that this is coming from diabetes. So these counter accusations that happens in families can actually be solved by someone just going to get screened for diabetes. And then diabetes also can result in amputations, which is very critical. So you will see that in as much as we have various methods and platforms for management of diabetes, the more our people develop complications, the more it will actually become very expensive for our people to then get to be treated. Because for a simple test and someone being diagnosed and maybe put on treatment that costs less than $10, if they present with the complication, you see that they will then need interventions that are way above what they can be paying per month in terms of their treatment. So nutrition, in terms of nutrition, diabetes, and its management platforms, nutrition is one of the critical ones, and usually we encourage people with diabetes, or even in our general populations, we need to then promote healthy eating, which means that we have to eat often oil-based salad dressing. We have to then use different types of oils, avocados, peanuts, and different types of fruits. And sometimes you can also then end up using low fat cream salad oils. You can use corn, soya, and then mayonnaise. And then what we need to limit is the full fat cream salad dressing, butter, margarine, cream. Some of these foods are actually not healthy for us, and they increase the risk of developing diabetes. And if you are already diabetic, then they can actually then put you at risk of having challenges in terms of your sugar control. Then we move on to the pillar of prevention. So you will see that one of the ways that we can actually then fight diabetes and win is to ensure that we prevent someone from ever developing diabetes, because it's actually then becomes costly when someone is then diagnosed. So one of the ways that we can do that is through health, body weight, and we can also prevent through being physically active, eating healthy diets. I think we've highlighted this, and also by avoiding tobacco use. So essentially in prevention, we are targeting some of those risk factors so that we ensure that we reduce the risk of our clients or our patients or our populations ending up with diabetes. So we'll move on to hypertension before we then emphasize some critical points with what we expect, or how the media can help in terms of these two conditions. So we'll move on to hypertension, otherwise called the silent killer, because the one thing that happens with hypertension is that you can actually present for the first time with a stroke or with a major complication, but before that you were not having even any other signs or symptoms. So hypertension is diagnosed especially when we make two different blood pressure measures, and that will be the systolic will be greater than 140, and the diastolic will be greater than 90. So essentially, for most people that have been to a clinic, you know that we usually say the one on top or the one below. So the one on top, if it's above 140, and the one below is above 90, then we say someone has hypertension, but the diagnosis is made by having two different readings on different days, ideally. So this is a condition in which blood vessels have persistently raised pressure, and it's a leading factor for cardiovascular disease. So what happens with hypertension, you will see that about 95% of people that are living with hypertension, the causes are not known. That's why you see that we then commence lifelong treatment. Why? Because we are just modifying the different modalities of how someone becomes to be having a high blood pressure, but we will not be able to then point to say this is the real cause of hypertension. So what are some of the risk factors? So when it comes to hypertension, we have what are called modifiable risk factors and the non-modifiable ones. So modifiable, these are things that we can actually then, as part of prevention, we can work through. So number one is unhealthy diets. And this is very key for both hypertension and diabetes. Why? Because you see that generally, as urbanization is taking place everywhere in the developing world, then our propensity to be preparing meals at home is actually going down, and people are buying these fast foods from different restaurants. And if you look at your city, wherever you are, you will see that the rate at which the fast food restaurants are coming up is actually higher, and that means problems and more problems for all of us. And you see that different governments are actually coming up with ways of taxing some of these the service providers. Why? Because they also want to ensure that there is a collective responsibility, because some of their products are actually bringing challenges in terms of health issues. And then so the other modifiable risk factor for hypertension is physical inactivity. I think we've also talked about this in the context of diabetes. And then consumption of tobacco and alcohol, very, very key. And then we've also talked about overweight. So you see that the risk factors for hypertension and diabetes are almost the same. And whereas as we prevent by avoiding these things, we're actually preventing both diabetes and hypertension. So there are other non-modifiable factors for risk factors for hypertension. Number one is the family history of hypertension. You cannot change that. And then if your age is above 65, so this one we usually mention as non-modifiable, but what we want to encourage as we communicate in our communities is to ensure that for everyone that is above 65, they have these routine visits where they go to the clinic, they are checked so that they also assess whether they have hypertension or not, because if they delay in terms of seeking treatment, they are also at risk of developing major complications in the shortest possible time. And then another non-modifiable risk factor is the coexisting diseases such as diabetes or kidney disease. So if someone then has diabetes, as I have mentioned before, they're at risk of developing hypertension. If someone has hypertension, they're also at risk of developing diabetes. So it's very important for us to ensure that for everyone that has any other comorbidity or any other coexisting disease like diabetes or kidney disease, they are also screened for hypertension. Then what are the symptoms? So generally a person with high blood pressure, usually they are asymptomatic, which means that there's nothing that they feel is wrong. That's why there is a lot of inertia in terms of people visiting the clinics to seek to have their blood pressure measured. So it is upon us as the media fraternity to ensure that we create sufficient demand through different messaging. So because the people that we are talking to, they are not feeling anything, they are asymptomatic. So it is our communication that will then, as we capacitate them, giving them the knowledge to say, you know what, you might not be feeling anything, but the truth of the matter is that you might actually be having high blood pressure, so you need to visit a clinic and to be assessed. So measuring blood pressure is the only way to diagnose high blood pressure. That is also very critical, because some people then say, you know what, because I don't have anything that I feel, I don't think I have hypertension. But what we can be sure is that it is through measuring that blood pressure that we can then ascertain whether someone has hypertension. So when symptoms do okay, so there are also other people that will then experience symptoms. So what they can experience are early morning headaches and nosebleeds and irregular heart rhythms, and this usually they can present as palpitations, and then they can be vision changes, and then they can be a buzzing or a ringing sensation in the ears. And then for severe hypertension, they can also then be feeling as fatigue, nausea, vomiting, confusion, anxiety, chest pain, or muscle tremor. So these are some of the things that we need to be communicating in our communities, so that we ensure that whoever is feeling some of these things, they feel very encouraged to then visit their nearest health facility so that they can be assessed for hypertension. Then moving on to the complications. So you see that the complications of hypertension, they touch almost the same areas where diabetes affects, which means that for someone who then has diabetes and hypertension, they have a sort of a double risk of developing complications, because the areas that are being affected are almost the same. So you see that in hypertension, you can develop a stroke, you can also have heart attack, you can also have kidney damage. And these major organ damage also occurs in diabetes. So we need then to be communicating so that for whoever has both of these conditions, they are also visiting their local health facility on a regular basis, so that people ensure that all the measured entities are in the normal ranges. And then how can we then prevent hypertension? So you can prevent by reducing the amount of salt to less than 5 grams per daily. And this is why I mentioned the issue of fast food outlets, because some of the salt content in some of these fast foods is actually very high. So you also need to eat fruit and vegetables regularly, and then you need to avoid saturated fats and trans fats. You need to avoid tobacco, you need to reduce the amount of alcohol, and be physically active every day. So you see that some of these entities are also the same prevention modalities that we talked about in the context of diabetes. Then how do you control your hypertension, your high blood pressure? It's also very critical for us to be communicating some of these very, very important things. You have to follow medical advice and adhere to lifestyle changes. You have to take medications as prescribed. I think this is very, very essential to communicate. Why? Because when someone leaves a clinic, we are not assured whether they are going to take the medicines as prescribed, but us, as we continue to make noise about it, as we continue to encourage people on different platforms, it will also then ensure that all the treatment goals can be met by ensuring that our clients are adhering to the prescribed medication. Then they also need to regularly check blood pressure and also to reduce and manage stress, which can actually then worsen the high blood pressure. So as we finish off, what is the role of media? I think media stands between us as healthcare workers in our small clinics, in our hospitals, in the silence of what we do in those closed rooms. Media is able then to access some of the rooms that we may not access. So mass media provides an important link between not only the rural residents, but between the different populations that we have, but most importantly, rural residents, and also providing vital health information. And also the media helps health workers expand their audience, because our health promotion or our health education that we offer at the clinic is actually targeting the people that have presented to the clinic on that day. So we have a lot of people that are in the communities that actually need the same education. So the media then helps us to amplify this message beyond the borders of health facilities. So the media also plays a major role in educating the public about health concerns. I think there is a lot of misinformation, especially now that we are in the era of vast information and technology, where someone can actually just be typing things that are not scientifically grounded to and spreading them to the population. The media then becomes a custodian of educating the public about health concerns. Then the media also has a responsibility to report accurate health and science information to the public. I think we have highlighted some of these things, that there is a lot of misinformation that is happening, and also there is also an invasion of the treatment modalities. People are seeking alternative methods of treatment, and some of them, they are actually becoming costly, because people will end up then coming back to the health facilities with major complications. But as the media, as we spread accurate information which is backed by science, we actually then help our populations to be informed and also to make decisions that will actually help their health. And then media can play a supplementary role by being integrated into a program that includes face-to-face or other forms of intervention. So I think this multimodality way of managing and spreading messages is actually very critical, where the media, instead of health workers trying to fight in their own trenches, the media then comes and also assist, and also as the media, as they spread different information, it also then becomes very helpful for them to also then be assisted by the health workers, so that the information that they are spreading is the accurate information, and it helps to prevent diabetes and hypertension, or even in the management for those that are already diagnosed. And then as we finish, also the media can be used at many levels of audience, organizations such as individual, network, organizational, and societal levels. So I will tell you that the media is actually very strategically positioned, because it has this vast reach of all these levels of society, which healthcare workers can actually maybe fail to do as they focus on their patients that come to a clinic. And then health promotion, disease prevention, the goal is to enhance state of well-being, to guard health, and the population that is at risk. I think this is what we all endeavor to achieve as different countries, to say our efforts through the media, through the health platforms, through the health workers, is to ensure that our populations remain healthy and we reduce the risk of contracting different diseases. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I appreciate the Merck Foundation for this opportunity to be able to share, and also the different media representatives for being here to listen as we talk about hypertension, diabetes. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Gerald. Now it's time to hear from our media experts. Let's welcome Mr. Ncube, National Coordinator, Zimbabwe National Editors Forum, who will speak about the media's role in reaching grassroots communities and raising awareness on infertility stigma, girls' education, and GBV. Over to you, Mr. Ncube.
Thank you very much, moderator. It's very difficult to talk after all the experts that have come before me and apparently spoke close to my topic. I really appreciate Dr. Musonda's presentation, particularly the role of the media. He touched a lot of issues which are very pertinent. And also I want to appreciate my fellow colleague, Dr. Gerard Kasamba. He also spoke about the role of the media. My brief is on the role of the media in reaching out to communities at grassroots levels and raising awareness on health and social issues. I'll share my brief presentation here. My introduction. Media is often described as a mirror of society. But at the grassroots, it is much more than that. It is a lifeline. For many rural and marginalized communities, radio, newspapers, community newsletters, television, and increasingly social media remain the most accessible and trusted sources of news. I want to dwell on the importance at grassroots level. At the grassroots level, access to health and social services can be limited, and information gaps are very common. Media plays a vital role in educating, informing, and transforming lives. I want to give an example. Community radio in Zimbabwe, such as Ntepe Manama FM in Matebele South, brings timely messages in local languages and helps people understand issues that affect health and well-being. I want to put it on record that in Zimbabwe, we now have 14 community radio stations that serve the communities. And by the end of this year, we expect 10 more radio stations, community radio stations, to have been licensed so that they disseminate information on healthy and social services in our communities. I also want to put on record that month end 30 September is the last call for those that are aspiring to have licenses for 10 community radio stations. I'm mentioning that so that you see the power of grassroots media in our communities in furthering the cause that is under scrutiny today, disseminating information about what we are talking about. Media in local communities, in local languages, with familiar voices, makes information not just accessible, but relatable. Media also helps to raise health awareness and breaking stigma. Media has the unique ability to break silence around subjects that are often shrouded in stigma. I want to give examples. Infertility in African societies, as an example, often leaves women and men facing discrimination or emotional distress. Media, drama, talk shows, real-life testimonies normalizes conversations. I want to give an example. In Nigeria, we have a television series, Shugu, S-H-U-G-A, television series. They integrate stories on reproductive health, sparking dialogue and encouraging openness and empathy. In Zimbabwe, there is a campaign, Know Your Status campaign. They use radio and television jingles to encourage HIV testing, and reduce fear around seeking services. Media emergencies. Media becomes a frontline tool in times of emergency. For instance, during the COVID-19 pandemic, community radio and social media were critical in spreading messages about preventive measures. It helped combat rampant misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, and fake news. Without these community media platforms, community radio, we're going to have a problem. I also want to give an example. Addressing social, I've jumped to addressing social issues. Media is equally powerful in addressing social issues, such as promoting girls' education. Stories of young girls who defy the odds to pursue schooling inspire communities. I want to give an example again. Let Girls Learn Initiative is one of the programs that we have around the continent. They used global and local media to highlight the importance of educating girls. Success stories from Malawi and Liberia showed how education uplifts families and transforms economies. In Kenya, community radio stations partnered with NGOs to air programs challenging child marriage and female genital mutilation, leading to measurable reductions in these practices. Addressing social issues. Media is equally powerful. The moderator is running, that's fine. The power of storytelling. What makes the media especially effective is its power to tell human stories. Statistics inform us, but stories inspire us. Examples: a woman who can overcome infertility stigma and now helps others through advocacy. A girl from Gwanda in Mad South in Zimbabwe who excelled at school with community support has inspired many people in that area. Media humanizes issues, turning abstract problems into personal realities, moving communities to act. Challenges. Many grassroots media always struggle with limited funding. Digital divides exclude large number of rural populations from online platforms. Language barriers limit the reach of some campaigns. Political or commercial pressure can restrict the kind of issues the media is free to cover. Overcoming challenges. There's a call for collaboration. Stakeholders, government, civil society, private sector can strengthen media by supporting community radio stations, working with journalists to produce cultural-sensitive content, investing in digital literacy, building private partnerships to fund awareness campaigns, investing in grassroots media, investing in communities' right to inform. Conclusion. The media is more than a messenger. It is a catalyst for change. It has the power to, 1, challenge stigma, 2, break barriers, 3, inspire collective action. Whether raising awareness about infertility, championing girls' education, or promoting healthier communities, media ensures that every voice is heard, every issue is highlighted, and no one is left behind. I thank you. Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Ntube. You made some very solid points. We now open the floor for your questions. Feel free to post them in the chat or unmute to speak directly with our panel of experts. Or you can share the questions with us via email. We will answer them accordingly. As we do not have any questions now, like, okay. We extend our heartfelt thanks to all our esteemed speakers, partners, and participants. Hope you will be continuing to be the voice of the voiceless. Have a great day.